Don't eat Honeycrisp apples before watching this.
Most apples have been grown for sugar content. Look at some of the labels. Sugar bee apple. Now, that ought to tell you what's in there.
Sugar.
How about a honey crisp apple?
Honey?
That ought to tell you what's in there. But
Sugar.
if you're in the apple section, grab some crab apple. One bite is going to tell you they're pretty doggone bitter. They have more of what you're actually looking for, which is the polyphenols, and these make a great addition to salad. Avocados are really one of the best foods that you can eat.
I'm gonna pause.
Almost pure fat and fiber, and it's fiber that your gut buddies love.
And it's good fat. Hold on.
You will actually lose weight by eating avocados.
I'm going to go eat some more avocados right now, actually. I'm starting today's show off with today's sponsor. And it's another one of the good ones where, like, this is good stuff to watch. I've actually watched this video more times than I care to admit because I don't really like eating apples. I like eating avocados, and I like the positive reinforcement to eat as many avocados as I want. And spoiler alert, I guess, or warning, you can eat too many avocados, or at least you can also give a baby too many avocados because it will, in fact, affect BMs. That being said, you may have noticed we're starting off today's stream with the sponsor of today's stream. Speaking of digestive issues, this is caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the quote unquote healthy foods. Did you notice? I saw this on Joe Rogan that some of the fruits have been so modified today that they're even too sweet to feed to zoo animals. It's amazing. Science has been telling us about, the food pyramid has been rubbish. We've all known this it's been not even rubbish, but a scam. And gut stuff is now what we understand to be like an interplay between the brain and the gut. So there's a new toxin. This potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist. This is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain and fatigue and digestive discomfort and stiff joints, even skin problems. Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably by these so-called healthy foods rich in sugars. An apple a day no longer keeps the doctor away, people. It's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain this hidden potential toxin. Go to the website. It's in here. Let me see here. I put it in the link, but it's called gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva so that they know from whom you are coming to watch what is good for your gut and what is bad for your gut. And take it from someone who's had IBS, at least that's what the doctors told me since I was 16 years old. Gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. After years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informational video to the public, free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid. Some of them will actually, I say, surprise you. I don't want to sound too dramatic. Some of them will not surprise you. Avocados, any excuse to eat avocados is a good one. Good morning, people. You wake up in the morning and you say like, we're going to talk about Miss Pageant, that it's not really Miss America Pageant. It's National American Miss Pageant. Speaking of gut and healthy guts and unhealthy guts, people missing the controversy, or in England, as they say, the controversy of the Miss Alabama being celebrated according to this pageant, morbidly obese, and people, missing the point. Oh, it wasn't Miss America pageant. That was never the point. Also, you have Miss Maryland, who is a male. And so what we are witnessing, it's nothing shy of what I now appreciate to be cultural Marxism. And speaking of cultural Marxism, before we bring in our guests, we were going to start talking about these things, and we will still talk about them, but it was going to be like sort of not a vapid, gossipy day. But I was concerned. And it's turning into something much better than that, because we've got Jeremy McKenzie in the backdrop. I see him right now. Chase Geyser from InfoWars in the backdrp, but I think I'm going to see that video until he's able to come on after his episode of InfoWars. Jeremy McKenzie, for those of you who don't know, Diagolon. Let me get hey, Diagolon, people. Check this out. Can I wear this now, Jeremy? Is this still? This one might not get me in trouble now. You're going to get the latest news from Jeremy McKenzie. His charges have been stayed after the torture that they put you through the process up in Canada under Justin Trudeau's regime. His charges have been stayed. So we're actually going to talk substance today. But, we're going to get to the what I call now and what I appreciate to be cultural Marxism. And I had no idea that I was actually espousing a white nationalist view when talking about cultural Marxism. This is from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Cultural Marxism catching on. When is this from? August 15, 20. Oh, this is old, 2003. A conspiracy theory with an anti-Semitic twist. I mean, this is so beautiful. I have to see if they've updated this at all. You know, what started off as a conspiracy theory with an anti-Semitic twist is now just accepted protocol. So I had no idea that when talking about things like cultural Marxism, which is, you know, I don't know how to describe it other than creating a perpetual victim class to challenge the ruling class and whatever that means and however that metastasizes over time. Cultural Marxism. I had no idea that I was espousing a self-hating anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. That is actually not exactly what we're witnessing right now. We're celebrating beauty pageants or pageants and touting as, you know, a sign of progressivism to celebrate morbid obesity or to celebrate men beating women at events that are allegedly, purportedly for women. So sponsor is in the link. gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. Check it out. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. McKenzie's in the backdrop. I should make sure that we're live across all platforms. For those of you who don't know who I am and you're new to the channel, Viva Fry. David Freiheit, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida Rumbler. We start on all platforms. I think we're also on Twitter now. And then we stop in a bit. Let me just see. I don't see it playing on Rumble. Hold on a second. Play. Hold on. Why it not play on Rumble? Hold on. It should be live on Rumble. I see the ad loading. I just want to make sure we're live across all the platforms where we should be live. We start on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Then we end on the commie platform that is YouTube, and we end on Twitter as well. I don't call it a commie platform, just so that we can vote with our dollars. And now I hear myself, and I'm not on the good mic. Oh, is that annoying? Jeremy, I'm going to get you on here one of these days. Default mic. That's much better. Okay. Jeremy, he doesn't tell me. Yeah, he's nodding. He's not telling me. Okay, go. Oh, he just flashed. He flashed a symbol. Let's bring him in, Jeremy. All right. Well, sorry about that beginning. Damn, stupid mic.
Yeah, I had myself muted there for a second. Glad I caught that. Is the volume too high or low, or do I need to adjust?
Up in our locals community, how is the audio? Oh man, you know, like it's we're gonna skip the trending or the superficial silly topics, although we're gonna talk about them, but we're gonna talk about the important stuff. Jeremy, it's not your first time on the channel. I think everybody should know who you are, but in the unlikely event that someone does not yet know who you are or what you've been through, who are you? You've been through other than the ring.
I hope they don't. It's not, you know, good. Is this is the volume okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's perfect. Some things I don't want to. Okay, excellent. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you having me on. I've been here a couple of times. I'm a Canadian. Well, I will classify myself as a Canadian entertainer and political activist. That's kind of what I do. I have a podcast in Canada I've been running for the last several years. I call it the Ragecast. Is kind of my online moniker is the Raging Dissident. As you can imagine, I'm not a big fan of the state in this country. Many of them around the world, they share a lot of common problems. Cultural Marxism is one of the things David mentioned earlier, which is, you know, a pretty destructive force, which is turning everything inside out. So I did nearly 15 years in the military and retired and started doing this. And I was just trying to, you know, share my opinions and be creative and have fun with it. And I got attacked by the state instead. So I've been fighting them for years now. And I've just gone through 2.5 years of a legal battle that we did succeed at every charge. So happy for that. And thank you before we get going, thank you very much to David and your audience and all the people that supported me. And you know, you guys didn't have to do that, and I appreciate that. It was a huge help. And you were actually the first guy to call me after I got out of jail. I was out on bail, and he called me. I was just checking into a hotel right outside the airport on my way back to Nova Scotia after I was released from the jail in Saskatchewan. So I appreciate everything you guys have done for me very much.
Jeremy, I don't like. I can, injustice is injustice, whether you like the object or the subject. No, the object or the victim of the injustice, but some is more unjust than others. Like, I won't draw any comparisons, but everybody who's following the stuff up in Canada knows that Dina Sharif, the professional protester, is still locked away in jail, and I don't understand how she's still in detention. But it sounds like she might have done some bad stuff to cops, and they're not particularly forgiving. But I still have questions about that. But she's a less sympathetic, as far as I'm concerned, victim of potential state
Yeah.
abuse than you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Untarnished reputation as a veteran. I mean, tell everybody, although they know, where did you actually you were in combat in countries for a decade plus.
Yeah, well, a little bit. Not wasn't all fighting for a decade. But I spent 14 years and change in the infantry and the combat arms. Short stint in the special forces unit in 2003 till 17 or so. I joined when I was 17 years old. So, it was it's a good time. I don't regret it necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of things I disagree with, and I don't think that war should have happened. I don't think any of it was. I think there's a lot of problems with that. There's a lot of crimes we're still living with today as a result of that. But the difficulty of it certainly gave me an opportunity to make myself into who I am today, and I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be where I am without those obstacles and challenges of the past in the first place. So, it's hard to.
So I mean, if this goes back to COVID. COVID hits. Raging dissident. Was it something that you had before COVID, or you started it during COVID?
Yep. Yeah, I started before. I started around 2018. I had a little bit of a blog. I started making online videos, just being silly about some things that bothered me, like the mass immigration and the cultural change, demographic changes in the country, and the what has rapidly amped up in the last few years. But even then, there was this systematic kind of stripping away of our rights and so on. So I was kind of doing videos, commenting on these kinds of things through a humorous lens, or I tried to anyway. The left and the government didn't think it was very funny. They came after me pretty hard. That's fine. That's you shouldn't give a soldier a war to fight. When he's bored and there's nothing to do. That's now this is all I do. So thank you to the Canadian Anti-Hate Network and Evan Balgord especially. He's created me. This is all his doing. So
what's it? Not to mention names, but the Anti-Hate Network. What's the guy's name? It's Gord is his last name.
Evan Balgord. Balgord.
Okay. So we'll back it up a little bit. COVID hits. Your podcasts get, I'll call them extreme for lack of a better word. They get intense, and I'm saying it almost tongue in cheek. When do you, then you have the trucker convoy. When do you first get into trouble with the law? It's only after the convoy, right?
Right before the convoy. So what happened was I was a small time, I still am, right? I'm just a small time voice on the internet, niche kind of Canadian. So Canada, not a big market, politics, an even smaller market, and dissident, so we've got a small, window of people here that I've been, talking to and entertaining for a while. So they didn't like it, but I didn't have much of an impact. There was a couple of viral videos I was in though, and it landed me on police watch lists apparently. And then in April of 2020, I did a video very, very aggressively criticizing the RCMP and their Portapeak response to the mass shooting that happened in Nova Scotia. And they put me on a person of interest list. I've discovered later through legal disclosure, and started following me around after that because I made fun of them. And not even that, it wasn't just making fun of them. I was deeply critical of their decisions, their lack of communication, their tactics, like everything they did was wrong, and they promoted themselves and stonewalled journalists from asking any questions. So after that, it's that's what got them interested in having me shut up, and they arrested me a number of times. I had 5 cases and 23 charges applied to me in the span of about a year.
So actually, back it up for those who don't know. The Port-au-Peak, it's the Nova Scotia shooting. It's one of Canada's, if not Canada's, worst mass shooting.
It is, yeah.
An individual who questionable. I mean, in my community, people were asking me to do a sort of a Robert Barnes hush hush, but I mean, I basically done it. We've talked about it at length. It's an individual who had went on a shooting spree for close to 24 hours in a police uniform, an RCMP uniform, and what we do not yet know, or do we know if it was a bona fide RCMP vehicle or one that he decked out to look like it? RCMP did not mention that this man was wearing a uniform or had one and had a vehicle. They were slow to respond to things. They by the time they released information that would have been critical potentially in saving lives, the dude had already killed more people.
Yep.
He had withdrawn $475,000 cash from a special type of bank account. What is it called? An investment?
It's one of these places that like police informants and agents will go to withdraw. Like it wasn't a real bank. Like he didn't go to CIBC and said, "Give me $500,000." He went to this
wealth management. Sorry, it's a wealth management, which is like a type of account that's not for everybody. Yeah. Withdrew $475,000 cash. So there were questions as to whether or not he was whatever we want to call an asset up in Canada. Serious questions. Trudeau, however, jumped on that mass shooting to implement even more gun laws, and
Yep.
never let a good tragedy go to waste, even if you've had a hand in facilitating it. And so
Yeah.
you outed some of the not RCMP people, but you were ringing some bells or raising some
Yeah.
flags on that.
Yeah, there was a lot of holes in the story and the motives, and there's just things that didn't make sense. And a lot of people saying, "Well, what do you know what you're talking about?" Well, this is literally what I did for a living in a lot of ways. In the military, we would train for these, not a 60-year-old denturist running around shooting up a county potentially, but small groups of guys, 10, 20 guys, platoon size elements. There's things you do and there's things you don't do, and all the things you're supposed to do, the RCMP didn't do any of them, and all the things you never do, they did all of those things. So. It's not as if they didn't know better. They should have, and they ought to have, and they didn't do them. And then anyone that asked any questions, they stonewalled all the journalists from asking questions. They let that go for a couple of days. They kept changing their timelines, their excuses, their versions of events, and then they said, "You just no more questions at all." Instead, how about that? And then gave themselves promotions, and that's the end of it. There's never been a motive divulged. There's never been. We don't know. We don't know why, when. It just happened, and it doesn't matter. It's over now. Give us all your guns. Right on. So, put it in the Robert Picton file of who's ever going to, we don't know, because we're the RCMP, and getting to the bottom of things isn't really our responsibility.
And so after you put the heat on the RCMP for that, that's when you start facing issues. This was during COVID, actually. It was during COVID, and then the trucker convoy happens.
Yeah.
What were the charges? I mean, we're not going to get into the Fed talk, period, because
I don't mind. I don't mind it.
Worst Fed ever, because you spent a lot of time in solitary in jail, but
just to get you.
I'm
just trying to trick all you.
Not debanked. Debanked. Life turned upside down. I won't divulge things that I'm not sure if I can, but you'll tell us all the details. What were the first charges pre convoy?
Yeah. So before the convoy, I was hanging around with some people and just living my life, doing my thing. And long story, there was a disgruntled person that was in our orbit who was a real piece of garbage. But I was a little more naive in those days and more trying to see the best in people. And even though they're a little bit, messed up, but they're friendly, and I'm trying to, they ended up feeling like they were slighted, and then they ended up becoming the chief witness in 4 or 5 of these cases against me with the police. I have a long history of being a police informant and this kind of stuff. So they had decided, well, they're going to get me now, and then just told them a pile of stories. And so the police started, raiding my house and took all of my firearms and equipment, all of it which was legal, but they just said that it wasn't, because then I have to fight 2.5 years later to get to the point where it's about to go to trial, and I had to hire weapons experts and all these people to come in and test these and be like, yeah, these are totally legal. There's nothing wrong with any of this. So then the police go, oh geez, whoopsie daisy, and we have to abandon the case. And there was a lot of other really greasy stuff going on, like potentially they planted evidence, they're fabricating evidence, they're destroying evidence. Like there was a lot of really. Anyway, that case didn't go so that one was defeated, I think earlier in the year, in the March, I think that one was done. There was, again, this person, again, I told them off, and they took that's criminal harassment, because I've phone records of them calling me saying, I'm calling the cops and putting them on you. You're done now. So I have all this, and I'm playing this for them. I'm like, they don't care. So that it's a train wreck. And then you've got an angry ex-girlfriend and scorned people, and they're all trying to get me arrested. And it's they come and get me in. Oh, my phone's ringing. Sorry. They come to get me in Nova Scotia for a national countrywide warrant in Saskatchewan for a 266 assault charge, which is a common assault. It'd be like if I poke somebody in the chest or spit on the shoe or bumped into them, that's technically assault, right? That warranted a Canada-wide warrant, so they sent 5 cops in their own plane to come get me in Halifax. I spent 6 days in solitary in Halifax waiting for them. They have 6 days to come get you, so they made sure they waited the appropriate time. Came and got me, hauled me out there, and another few weeks in solitary there, and I'm denied bail, and I'm in jail, I think, almost 3 months there before I was able to extricate myself with a good lawyer, because I didn't have one at the time. I had to, fortunately, Karima Syed came to view the bail hearing and saw how unusual it was, and connected me with Mr. Foda, and he, I think he took some pity on me. I think he recognized some things about. I mean, we don't share every opinion, or we're not best friends or anything. And, ideologically we're different people, of course. But he's like, I like fighting for the underdog, and I don't like seeing it when I think the government is stepping on people, because for his background, and he had friends growing up that's something that he'd seen happen before. So he's like, I'll take it. I'll take all your cases for half the price. Let's do one. Like, I'll take them all down. We'll fight them all. So I considered it. I had a bunch of other lawyers to call. I hung up the phone. I'm in the range, and in the gang. They put me in the gang range in the prison with like murderers. And they asked me like, "What gang do you belong to?" I'm like, "Nothing. I don't." And they put me in with these guys. I hang up the thing and go back into the range where they're watching, usually hip hop and rap music and stuff. And it's Rock the Casbah is on TV. You remember that old the Clash song? And one of the part of the chorus is Sharif don't like it. That's the lawyer's name is Sharif. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So I hired him, and he had a great sales pitch. He did an excellent job, and then we ended up knocking everything down one after the other, and in a pretty methodical, strategic fashion. Like, it wasn't just a willy-nilly. You've got 5 cases in 3 provinces, but they're all connected to each other. You see, it's not individual. Like, it's a lot of the same people. It's the same police agencies, the same cops in many cases. Like, so it's all, besides the one that we just defeated, which was the protest outside I hesitate to call him a doctor, but I suppose Robert Strang's house. That one didn't, but the other 4 were all basically the same people. So
it's unbelievable. So you had your common assault charge in Saskatchewan, for which you were picked up in Nova Scotia, put in solitary for 2 weeks, shipped across the country. We talked about it during one of the interviews, on a plane with armed guards and whatever. You testified before the Rouleau Commission from that jail, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and before that, because there was a lot of confusion about that too, because at the time my lawyer didn't want me to testify, because he's like, you're facing 5 potentially jury trials, or at least 3 of them, or 3 or 4 are potentially jury trials, and he's like, they could make any number of things. They're going to ask you about all the anti-hate articles. You're going to, like, if you say something wrong, like, it's not in your interest to do this, right, for obvious reasons. And so I'm like, well, I wanted to testify because I was very confident I could deliver. I wasn't afraid of these people. And so we thought, well, here's what we'll do, because they know that the law is too, and they expect that I'll probably do this. So he's like, what we'll do is we're going to tell them I don't want to testify because of protect my rights and blah, 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 which will signal weakness and make it appear as though, I'm unwilling to do this, which they immediately did. They doubled down and said, oh no, he has to. And they overrode, they threw out my rights and waived my rights to not testify. So they forced me to do it, thinking I was going to come in. I don't want to. I had Morgan ship one of my suits out there. I got all shaved up and cleaned up, and it didn't go well for them at all. And then after that, the media has rarely said my name even once. But 2 weeks prior to that was every day. Oh, we got the terrorist leaders on the stand on Friday.
Founder of Diagolon.
Yeah, we got them now. You're going to see all the evidence is going to come out, and you're going to hear it all. And it was just humiliating for them. And that was the end of that. And it really turned around after that. I got bail out of jail shortly after that, and it's just been pretty much the constant march back as the Russians pushing east into Berlin from that point forward, pretty much.
Assault charges dropped or stayed or withdrawn? I mean, technically.
I think maybe all of them were stayed.
Okay. So the assault. You had the gun charges, which everyone ran with. That's how they publicly smear someone. It's like, oh, he's facing gun charges. And then the most recent to be dropped. Let me bring up the CBC article, because not often it happens, but you're still guilty, by the way, even by the way they're phrasing it. Judge throws out charges against pair accused of harassing Nova Scotia chief medical officer. Judge rules it took too long to bring Diagolon founder Jeremy McKenzie and Morgan, I don't know what was her last name, Guptill to trial. Yeah. So this was the case where you were protesting outside the doctor's home, and with a group of other people. And from what I understand, unless I'm mistaken, you and now I know we're lying. Guptill. What's her first name? Morgan. Sorry about that. No, I'm an idiot. Just total brain fart. You were the only 2 who were arrested or charged with stalking and harassment.
That's right. Yeah, we were there it was 3 days long. It went on for these protests, and there was a dozen cops there the whole time from the get-go. And even before we went there, I had some hesitation about it. And I'm like, are you sure? And she had already done this. Morgan had been there before with a police liaison officer that said, listen, as long as you do these things, it's totally legal. It's fine. Just, so we knew what the rules were. And she showed me the photos. Like, yeah, we've done this before. So I was like, oh, fair enough. Okay. And the police were there and they didn't say anything. They didn't say what you're doing is illegal. If you don't leave, you'll be arrested. You have to stop it. They didn't say anything. They just stood there and watched this. So this goes on for a couple of days until either old Bobby Strang or somebody called up and wanted something done with it, and it came out through disclosure, which they lied about. They said didn't happen, doesn't exist, and there's no evidence of this whatsoever. The Premier's office, one of his right-hand guys, Ian Burke, who's the chief of provincial corporate security, is calling shift managers, he's calling police officers directly and saying, I'm working for the Premier and he wants to know what's going on with this and why isn't this happening. He goes to our bail hearing to meet with our prosecutors to discuss our bail conditions on behalf of the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston. And it's a farce. The whole thing is a shit show. So they wanted us to be made examples of is what happened. And like you said, there was a dozen other people there. None of them, they were all the police knew who all these people were, but they didn't arrest any of them. They were told to come and get us specifically. And I said from the beginning to my original lawyer and then further, I want to see all the communications they have. I want with my name in it. They said, oh, there's nothing like that. That doesn't exist. This was just a routine police operation. I said, bullshit. I want to see your internal emails and your communications. And they said, oh, there is nothing. It doesn't exist. Meanwhile, we had already FOIPOP'd this. So I'm already in possession. I'm already holding these emails from the Crown Prosecutor's Office, the Department of Justice, Ian Burke. They're all talking to each other about this. I've got the report from the Chief Firearms Officer who says he's not involved. He's just in it. If a third party, like he has to come, right? Because he's presiding over the firearms licenses. This is his job. And he has to write a review of why mine is going to be denied for reissue or extension or whatever, right? And he said, and at the end of his summary, he's like, I met with Ian Burke, I met with the prosecutors and the DOJ at the courthouse for the bail hearing to discuss the bail conditions, blah, blah, blah. So I already have all this. While I'm asking them for this information, I want it officially just goes through court channels, and they say it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. So they're lying. And like, this is just going on and on. And that journalist, Richard Cuthbertson, he didn't show up for any of this. They showed up the last day for the judge's ruling to say there was no political interference. That's the only thing he was interested in printing, because he was told to come down there so they can cover the Premier's ass. He's got an election coming up. So the reason this, I think, dragged out for as long as it did, they had no interest in prosecuting this. As you can say, the judge ruled that it took too long. Why did it take so long? My lawyers, were from over a year and a half ago saying, you're taking too long. We want to go to trial. Let's go. Give us the disclosure. Let's go.
Give us the disclosure. That's the issue, is they're actively concealing information from you. In this particular case of Strang, was it
they waited a year?
Waited a year. And was there not some issues, evidence before the court of destruction of evidence, or at least concealment of exculpatory evidence?
Yes, well, that's some of these communications we were talking about that they said didn't exist when they in fact did exist, and they lied to the judge. Dr. Strang is having lunch. He comes in, gets sworn in, does his testimony.
Tell the people who Dr. Strang is. I think we mentioned.
He's the chief medical officer of Nova Scotia. So
he's
like
the guy. I'll pull up a couple
Henry.
of videos. Yeah, he's the one. I believe he's the one who commented on the injunction to prohibit public gathering protests to protest the lockdown measures. I think there's a couple of very funny videos out there, which I'll find afterwards. But he's the CMO, so he's like the Theresa Tam of Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
or
he was on the stand. Yeah, he was on the stand for almost 4 hours and was screaming at my lawyer, telling him he's not asking the right questions and what he should be doing, and it was hysterical. No journalists were there to see that. For some reason, Richard Cuthbertson wasn't interested. He wasn't interested to see the staff sergeant of the RCMP, Erica Pinn, say, it's my job to shut down protests. That's what her job is. That's what she said under oath. Like, it's just, days and days and days of this, to then finally, they just gaslight, and the judge says, oh, there's no evidence of any of this, and there's no political interference at all, which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I think you would know as a lawyer, and the way it was described to me by several lawyers, including mine, is that you can't prove political interference. Like, if you're a police officer and I'm a governor, and I say, I hope something gets done about these protesters pretty soon, and you just take it upon yourself to be more aggressive with it. We can't measure how that impacted in your head if you decided to act more aggressively because I said it or not. We don't know. But if there's evidence of that conversation happening, it's the appearance of political influence, and that's all it takes. If there's if it can be made to look like that does appear to be what may be happening, that's all that's required. And people that work directly for the Premier of Nova Scotia, calling shift supervisors, going to bail here, like just really inserting himself into a justice process that he has no business being in. What would you call that? I think that's nakedly on its face. It's a slam dunk as far as I'm concerned. And they acted like, oh no, this is totally normal. It's not normal, but Nova Scotia is a very corrupt province, and CBC, does the dirty work for them, as they always have.
Well, they are paid by the very government that they're supposed to be investigating. It's a no-brainer for corruption. Have you gone through the correspondence that you've obtained through your FOI pops on your own channel, in your own community?
No, not on mine. Not extensively. No, not yet. We were just kind of we couldn't, not until the trial and everything was done. But this just expired a few days ago now.
Well, now the problem is staying the charges. In theory, they could revive them if they so choose.
Right.
So you got, everybody knows this as well. You got debanked, and that's where I really had my issues in terms of debanking and not even being able to get a bank account. You got debanked on the basis of some of these charges, right? That was the as far as
I was never given an explanation. They just called me one day. I think what happened was, a little bird told me that there was some movement in the Conservative Party that was making sure I was getting, dragged as much as possible, particularly the provincial Conservatives here, but maybe more. And I don't know. I had a call. I had issues with some Veterans Affairs stuff. I had insurance problems. I had in the bank. This was all in the same week, so I feel like some calls were made. It's very unlikely all these institutions independently of themselves decided we should shut this guy down all at the same time. So they just called and said, yeah, we have to terminate your banking relationship. And I said, why? And they're like, well, we just are. And there's no redress. They don't have to give you a reason. They don't have to explain. They just say you've got 30 days to get your affairs in order, and then we don't have any business anymore. And they told me if you ever come into a Scotiabank branch location again, you'll be arrested. So
added to it's so freaking wild. So debanked from one bank, and then you also found out that you could not be rebanked with any other major institution.
I'm trying now. I'm trying to get I'm poking around some other ones. I don't want to say which because for obvious reasons. But yeah, they we'll see. I tried like RBC, TD. They're like no. Like within applying, they were like no. They wouldn't give me a passport. I applied for a passport before I was even charged, and didn't get back to me. I paid for a 48-hour, like the 24-hour turnaround. You pay, was it like $400 or something? And I don't hear from the passport office. I call them numerous times. I don't hear from them again for almost 10 months later, 8 months later, when I'm in jail in Saskatoon. And they said, yeah, we can't give you a passport because you're in jail. So, okay, that's totally normal. Like, yeah, 2 days, 8 months. Sure. It's very convenient for you. So I don't
Jeremy,
know.
Here, what we're going to do. But actually, before we'll tie the nice bow and then we'll start talking about other stuff. And you'll tell me if I'm projecting. Are you fatigued a little bit by this entire process, or you look I don't know if it's like disappointed or just fucking fed up? Like what's your underlying feeling here that I think I'm picking a vibe up on?
It's you ever have a really large lawn to mow? It doesn't really feel satisfying. You're just happy it's done. It was just a chore to do that was always going to end this way. I was confident this was always going to be the end result. And pretty near as soon as I was out on bail, when I was out on bail and I had the lawyers that I had, who I talked to them a lot. They're very competent, very intelligent. They could see what was happening. And I was like, that's all you need. You need a competent, litigator to go through this, because I knew what was true and I knew what was nonsense. And I was like, there's no way this holds up. All I need is one guy that knows what he's doing, and I'll pay, and it'll fall apart. And it did. It's exactly what happened. So pretty much since I got out of jail, it was just annoying. I was on house arrest for a year. I couldn't see my kids hardly at all. I couldn't leave the province. I couldn't leave. I mean, I had to be home at 8 p.m. every night. I was on a curfew, so it was just annoying, really. But it really galvanized my spirit in a lot of ways. It didn't dissuade me at all. It did quite the opposite, because if what I was doing was having no effect and of no value, why go to these lengths? Why jump through these hoops to do this? And then if you quit at the end, you just give them what you want. Let's just give them the satisfaction of pressuring you into giving up anyway. So I've got a lot more motivation and dedication to what I'm doing now. And we're going on tour here next month to be traveling the country, and we're making like a couple dozen stops. I think we've got 8 different shows and another dozen like meet and greets and stuff. So
you are currently facing 0 pending charges.
Correct. I had 23.
You are, as far as it goes, I say a free man. You don't have a passport yet. I don't know. I don't want to ask about the banking situation, but as far as criminal persecution goes, you're a free man.
It would appear that way for now. I mean,
touch wood.
they get back to me in 6 months. I'm going to go speak in public here soon, so that might be illegal as well. I mean, they're really trying to make that a thing as well. And sometimes politicians are standing next to scribbles that Morgan put on a door, and that's a national crisis too, as it was with the Conservative Party recently. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going to be giving up at coming after us, but I think as long as everybody's very careful and just mind your P's and Q's, and just don't make it easy for them. I'm not saying I did in the first place, but I was a lot less, I was a lot more naive to what the situation is and how far they'll go to hurt people just because they can. I didn't think it was as bad as it is, that you couldn't, but it is that bad. And you do have to take it seriously. Yeah.
It's worse than we can possibly imagine. And I remember as you're testifying from jail, first of all, I've known of you for a little while. I didn't know of you during the protests, and everyone in the chat's like, why is Viva ignoring Jeremy and McKenzie? But I remember now retroactively watching some of your clips and some of your words from the protests. And it was literally, keep your heads down. Don't give them a reason. Don't start fights. Walk away from it. And as you're testifying from jail, your attorney came up and, did a great job playing these clips back. It's like, oh yeah, this is the guy that allegedly incited violence. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Jeremy, what we're going to do now that we got that news out of the way, and I want to talk to you about cultural Marxism, we're going to end on YouTube and Twitter and bring it on over to Rumble. And then when we're done here, Jeremy, okay, before we go over to Rumble, where can everybody find you? But we're going to keep talking over on.
Yeah, all my social media, you can go and find it at the website ragingdissident.com as my Telegram link, my Substack link, my whatever I'm allowed to use, which isn't much. Rumble so far, God be praised. They let me do pretty much whatever. I haven't had an issue with them yet, so but yeah, there's a few other spots, you can download it on Odyssey or like Spotify, Apple Podcasts and stuff like that. So
Twitter, not on Twitter?
No, I'm not allowed on Twitter either. I was kicked off of that for reasons.
I wish I had an in with Elon. Like I think he doesn't retweet me as much as he used to, but I'll try to get some attention on that because it makes no sense.
I even tried to, so I appealed it and it was rejected within 90 seconds.
It's like when you appeal a demonetization on YouTube and it's a 4-hour stream and like 5 minutes later, like we've carefully reviewed it and we've said,
I'm sure they did, right? They're like, no, we know. I'm like, oh, so this was manual, right? They terminated it immediately. They said it was, for hate or something. And then I tried later because some other people got reinstated. I was like, I'll try it again. And they said, this account doesn't exist. So I can't even get it reinstated because it's scrubbed. The account doesn't even exist anymore. They deleted it. So
unbelievable. All right, well, let's not give these fiends any more of our traffic. We're going to end on YouTube and Twitter and go over to Rumble and